Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Deborah Rue, CEO of Rue Global Impact and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hi, everybody. This is Deborah Rue, and this is Human Potential at Work. Today, we're going to talk about assistive technology, but timepieces too. It's very important that technology be used in a way that allow us to stay independent, so it's very exciting. So my guest today is Hyungsoo Kim. He's the founder and CEO of E273, and I'm really excited to talk to him about what he's doing because I think it's very cool. So welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to share my experience.
Yes, tell us a little bit about who you are and how this started and how you created this company.
Sure. The company name is E1. So E1 is short for everyone. So we have created a wristwatch that can tell time by either touch or a sight. We started about 10 years ago. It was a class project at MIT. And we started after having found that there are not good watches for people with vision loss. It's either the talking watch or they call it the Braille watch. It's a regular analog watch, and you can open the cover glass to touch those hands. But those hands are fragile, and when you touch them, they can move quite easily. And of course, when they move, they don't know how much they're moved. It's very difficult to use. And those two options are the only options they had. So we said, well, it's time to make a better solution. Mm-hmm.
Build a better mousetrap, as we say, right? So, and I have friends that use that watch, but that's a good point. I never thought about you could go to touch it and accidentally shift the time, and then you're not going to have accurate information. Yeah, that is interesting. So tell us more about the watch that y'all created at MIT.
Yes, so I can go through how we started and more in detail. By the way, if I'm going too long, feel free to cut me and ask me any questions. It started from my interaction with my classmate who was blind. So one of my classmates, he was blind. I happened to sit next to him a couple of times, and somehow it continued throughout the semester. And whenever he needed to check time, he had to bother me. He had to poke me and then ask. And it kept happening and again and again. And that's when I questioned, why does he have to keep asking me? And I looked at him, and he was actually wearing a watch. And after the class, I asked him, okay, I see you're wearing a watch. How do you use it? And it turned out there's a talking watch. And basically, you press a button and it speaks out the time. I thought it was, that's pretty convenient. And then quickly, I realized that they can't use it when there are people around them in public spaces, during the class, during the meetings, because it speaks out time out loud. It's audibly disruptive, and everyone knows that you're checking time, so it's embarrassing. So he couldn't use it. So I asked him, well, is there any other options? And the next day he brought me this watch which I showed just a moment ago. But he couldn't use this because he doesn't have really good sense of touch. So he has a trouble using this watch, and it breaks quite easily. And then I asked him again, this is 21st century, there gotta be some other options too. And he said no. So I was very surprised. And of course, there's the iPhone. They use iPhone a lot nowadays, but it's also audible display of time. And they can be wearing the earphones. For them, it's very important to be able to hear what's happening around them. Having the earphones plugged into their ears all the time is not a very good solution. I did more research, and then it turned out that very surprisingly, he was right. There are no other better options out there. So that's when we, said, well, it's time to make one. So that's how we started. But when we first started, and that's something that I can go more into details later. But in the beginning, I was building something that I thought they needed. And with a lot of incorrect misconceptions and stereotypes about people with disabilities. So, for example, the biggest mistake that I made was that the first thing that came up to my mind was Braille. Okay, I'm making something for the blind, and it has to be something with Braille. So our first prototype was a watch with Braille display. So 4 these Braille dots. And then at the time I was at MIT, so it wasn't so hard to put together a team with those amazing MIT engineers. We spent quite a bit of time and resources and capital into it. After we made the prototype, we did the user research at MIT. There are once a month, about 50 to 60 people who are blind. They get together and they talk about the technologies or products they could use. They're a really amazing group of people. And then, so we went there to present our prototype. And then at the first meeting, I still remember very clearly. So as soon as we said we are developing a Braille watch for the blind. And their first question was, okay, that's cool, but do you know how many of us can read Brailles? So there were about 50. So I said, but I never really thought about it because my automatic assumption was if you're blind, you read Brailles. So I said, if not all of you, maybe 90% of you can read Brailles. But of course, it turned out, he said, well, about 90% of us cannot read Brailles. That was very surprising. If I did a little bit of research, it's something that's available widely.
Right. But still, it's very common. People think everybody that's blind reads Braille. They don't realize it's definitely not true. And the Braille, people learning Braille is actually down. So, yeah.
Because many of them, they lost their sight at the later stage of their life.
Correct.
So many of them didn't get to develop a good sense of touch. So basically, I was making something that only 10 to 20% of the target audience could use. So that was extremely embarrassing. And then another person, raised his hand and he asked, okay, then what's the color? What's the size? What's the material? And the next set of questions, all about the aesthetics of the watch, which again, I didn't really thought about. It's very embarrassing to admit that, but I thought, okay, if you're blind, maybe you care about the functionalities more than the looks and the designs. But they cared a lot more about the looks and the designs than the functionalities. So there was strike 2. And then another person, raised his hand and he said, I can read Brailles, so maybe I can try. But his question was, is that only for the blind? Right. So this time I thought they would like my answer. My answer was yes, it's specially designed for the blind. Because, nowadays we like something like limited editions, something that is custom built for us. So I thought they would like that, but they didn't. They really didn't want to use any more products that are labeled as, only for the blind, because it really separates them from the other.
I agree.
And there are like zillion similarities between the sighted and the blind, and there's only one difference, just one difference, and then we focus on the one difference so much. And they said, we want to use something that everyone else likes to use as well. If we want something, we want to be able to just walk into a regular store and find something that works for everyone, instead of having to go to the specialty stores. And so there was strike 3. And then literally after that meeting, we were so discouraged. And our prototype, we didn't get to use it anymore. After a couple of days, they contacted me back saying, if you are still very, interested in building something for us, we'll help you. Why don't we work together? So I really appreciate that. So that's what we did. We put together a team again, but this time not just the MIT engineers, but the designers from RISD, the architect from Harvard, and then people with all different backgrounds. And our goal was this time was to make a watch that doesn't require vision, yet it's not just for the blind. It's not just for the sighted. It's for everyone. So that's why we named the brand E1, which is for everyone. It's short for everyone. That's how we came up with this design. So instead of the traditional conventional hands, minute and the hour hand, so there are two ball bearings rotating.
Wow, that is so cool.
And this is the minute, and the one rotating the bottom is the hour. So you can, if you're sighted, you can check time by looking at the watch, or I use this a lot when I'm embarrassed to look down to my wrist to check time during the meetings or interviews. So it's very oftentimes it's convenient for the sighted as well. And we wanted to make something that is aesthetically attractive to people who are sighted as well, or the blind altogether, regardless whether you're sighted or blind.
Right. You wanted to make watches for human beings that every human being could use and enjoy. I'm with that group. I don't want to wear an ugly, I'm not saying your watch was ugly, but I don't want to wear an ugly watch. I want to, I do care about that. And I know that you and I have talked about, you've used the term inclusive design. And I think it's so powerful, your story, because you certainly were trying to solve a problem, but often designers forget to actually bring in the community of the people they're trying to design it for. You learned a lot of very valuable lessons doing this. And I, of course, because the field I'm in, know that a lot of people that are blind don't read Braille, especially, as you noted, they lose their eyesight, which is about 80% after they're born. If you're born blind, then, maybe you'll go to school and learn it, but there's also not a guarantee that happens either.
Correct.
So even though we put Braille on all of the elevators and the ATMs, having Braille on actually can help multiple people. It's not just for people that are blind, but I just think it's a powerful story, and I appreciate that you're honest about that story, because this happens all the time. And often it happens, and when we point out that doesn't work for us, it's like an aggravation, which is why I wanted to bring in the terms inclusive design, human-centered design. And also, I think it's a very important point that you were trying to make a difference, but you realized you had to bring in more of the users and architects and things like that, so you could actually build something that worked for all humans. Because it's a very cool watch. I imagine also that people would be fascinated by it. So then it becomes a conversation piece, which is also cool, because it really is cool. So tell us more about, what the next steps were, because now, of course, creating a prototype is great, but getting something to market, being an entrepreneur, those are also fun, challenging times.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Building a product versus building a for-profit business out of it is two different stories. That was one of the biggest challenge, and to be honest, again, we struggled a lot, but that's why but luckily we were able to recruit someone who was very talented. It's not just a marketing branding guy. He's just very sincere. He always applies a very sincere approach. His approach and principle was, if we're making something for someone, we really have to understand what they like and what is the underlying problem that we are trying to solve. We should be able to show people, not just what we made, but why we made it and how we made it. And after a while, it was quite clear that the underlying problem is the lack of inclusive design awareness. And why? It's not that all those engineers and designers are trying to exclude people with disabilities on purpose. No, not at all. It's just that they don't have enough interactions. And again, they work under very limited time and resources pressures, limitations. So they have to work with all those stereotypes and misconceptions. And it keeps reinforcing those stereotypes more and more. And so we wanted, really, in order to solve the problem that we are trying to tackle, it has to be, our product has to be able to connect people together. People with disabilities and people with all different abilities and disabilities. I like the phrase disabilities, people with, differently abled, people. And people who are blind, so many people that I met, they have amazing talents. They have developed amazing talents in something else. And so if we embrace them, we can be very creative and innovative. And in the beginning, so we wanted to be more storytelling company to really connect people together. That's why we named our watch, our timepiece, after Bradley Snyder. So this watch timepiece is called the Bradley Timepeace. And Bradley Snyder, he was a bomb diffuser. He was a naval officer. But in Afghanistan 10 years ago, he lost his sight completely from the bomb explosion. And after about a year or so, he was fully recovered, but he lost his sight completely. And he tried to live his life again. And then it was difficult. It was very challenging. And it was not because he could not see anymore, but it was mostly because how people treated him. He really didn't like that. So he just wanted to show that he's the same person and he can do amazing things. So he competed in the Paralympics, and in London he won gold medal, 2 gold medals and a silver medal as well. And in the following Olympics, he set a world record. And so his interests and our interests aligned well together. So we wanted to have a story on our products. So when people use our products, they hear about the stories, and then it helps breaking the stereotypes and misconceptions.
I agree. And I will tell you, I work with a lot of people that are blind, and some of the things they have to deal with. And I was talking to somebody on the show, and she said, I wish I only had to deal with my muscular dystrophy, but I actually have to deal with society disabling.
Yes, correct.
Society disables us because, yes, he has to navigate the world a little different. But even as the story you told about Bradley, I am still here. I still have lots of abilities, and identity is a very interesting topic. That's one reason why we've created billionstrong.org to just focus on talking about the identity and our lived experiences having disabilities, whether they're visible or invisible. But I just think that's such an important point. And also inclusive design. Inclusive design should just be a staple of design across the board from now on. But it's not. And I know that you learned a lot about inclusive design, but why is inclusive design not a nice to have, but essential to design now?
Yeah, so to me, inclusive design it's not, correct. It's not something nice to have. People think that assistive technology products is an addition to something we already have. They they think that it's something different, additional, to be added to have the functionalities. But no, if you just include them from the beginning, like I said, you can come up with something much more innovative. You can be much more creative, yet it benefits everyone. They think that assistive technology, those additional functionalities, is only beneficial to people with disabilities. But no. For example, our timepiece, a lot of the users, their feedback is, I was very surprised to see how I can benefit from wearing this watch during the meetings or during the dinners with in-laws. And still, it looks good. So they like it as a design piece. And so when we include, and another really good example that I always bring up is Siri. And I'm sure they didn't come up with that idea just to help people with vision loss. They wanted to, I was not in their design or development team side, I don't know for sure, but always the Apple's approach is like very inclusive, and they wanted the Siri, it helps people, you know, who are sighted as well. If you're driving or if your hands are all occupied, you can just speak loud and then you get all the informations. And so that's a perfect example of the inclusive design approach. You don't separate them. You don't separate, okay, let's try to build something for the non-disabled people, and then let's see if you can add something additional to it so that additional people with disabilities can benefit. No, they don't take their approach. They from the beginning, they encompass all people with all different backgrounds and abilities and disabilities, and they try to make products that works for everyone. And always it turns out to be a better solution for everyone. It's innovative. It really pushes to the next level of technologies.
I agree. And I think also that I'm a big Apple user. And the reason why I'm a big Apple user is because I find their products much more usable, much easier. It's actually sometimes, I'll be honest, I'm 60. And as I started using technology very early. I've always loved technology, as did my father before me. But so I learned how to do things the hard way because I was programming in DOS, and I'm very early on. And so when I first started using Mac products, I was a little confused because I didn't understand how to do something easy. So I remember talking to my son at the time and saying, how do I cut and paste? And he said, you hold down a button. You just touch it. I'm like, what? So I'm not used to thinking of the most easy way to do something. And so it's been interesting. But I will say also with Apple, we were told as a society it was impossible to make a touchscreen accessible. And we really needed touchscreens to be accessible, especially people with vision loss and blind. But it wasn't possible. And then Apple did it. So I guess it is possible. Apple, I'm a big fan of Apple. I'm just a big fan because they really do, as you said, seem to be very committed to designing for human beings, no matter where we are. And they are like everybody else. They have their challenges. But I also want to make a comment about assistive technology. I think assistive technology is important, but sometimes, and I think this is a good example of what you've done, sometimes with assistive technology, it feels the designers are more focused on the medical model of what it is to be a person with a disability, as opposed to a social model. Because the social model is, like you said with Bradley's a wonderful example. He lost his sight doing a really important job, but he's not broken. He is just having to use his other senses in other ways. I have a good friend of mine that's blind, that he had a coworker say to him, I'd rather be dead than be blind. And now, how is your coworker supposed to even respond to that comment, first of all? But it's ridiculous. We've got to stop treating people like they're not valuable because whatever, fill in the blank. But the reason why I wanted to tell your story is it's a very powerful entrepreneurial story. It's a story of inclusive design. It's a story of listening and learning. And I think that you were right. Inclusive design is essential. And if you're not doing it, which so many aren't, and if you're not including the users that you're trying to create something for, you're not going to be as successful. And it seems to me sometimes you should just know to do all this stuff, meaning include the user that you want to, talk to people. But I don't still always see that happening in the design world. So I think there's an opportunity for designers to follow your lead. But I know that I've already kept you on for 30 minutes, but I want to talk to you just for a little bit more. So have you gotten your product in stores now?
Yes, mostly online.
Okay.
So on our website, we have a couple of offline retailers such as SF MoMA store.
Okay.
Yes, but mostly on our website is accessible. So
Okay.
people with
Thank
vision
you.
loss,
People forget that. They forget to make their website accessible, but it's got to be accessible to us. So bravo. So how many different models do y'all have now?
So we have about five, six different models of two different sizes, and we have many different types of straps as well. But all our watches are unisex design.
Okay.
We also didn't want to reinforce the stereotypes on the gender. Like female, they like to wear small, like rose gold or
Pink.
so we wanted to break that stereotype as well. Yeah, all of our
And
watches.
so I would like to see your watches in Walmart and Target. I'd like to see them in the big ones because I know that if I saw your watch, I would be more attracted to your watch in the first place. I love the story behind it, and I love to buy something that has a powerful social impact story. But I also like thoughtful design, and your design is very cool, and it has these terrific benefits to me. Like you said, if I'm with somebody that I don't want them to know that I'm checking the time, it's practical for all of us. So I'm hoping that any brands listening to this could see there was an opportunity. I could see an opportunity for a brand like Tommy Hilfiger taking your watch and creating a band. That there's so many opportunities to support work like yours that are actually, and people might say, this is just a watch, who cares? But he just explained to you why it is important. You can't always listen to your cell phone tell you the time. So I don't want to constantly be reminding everybody that I'm the one person in class that's blind. That's embarrassing. So I appreciate the work you're doing for that reason as well. So a couple of last questions. I want you once again to tell everybody how to find your website, how to find you on social media, but I also want you to tell the audience, because I know a lot of corporations listen to this and a lot of individuals, how can we as a community support what you're doing?
Yes, thank you. Our website is www.eone-time.com. So that's e1-time.com. It is accessible. And then our social media channels, mostly Instagram and Facebook. Our handle is E1, E-O-N-E.
Good. Very consistent branding. And are you working with any other people like Bradley?
Yes. So also our next product that we're developing is a desk clock.
Oh, cool.
But the same concept. We're developing it with people with vision loss. And we are working with Christine Ha. I'm not sure if you know of her.
I do. Yes.
So she will be the next spokesperson, and we'll name the product after her. It's not 100% confirmed yet because we are still developing, but it will be called Christine.
Okay. Wow, that's so cool. That's so cool. And have you had any of the large blind organizations get behind it? I know there's Royal National Institute on Blind, the American Foundation of the Blind, National Foundation of the Blind, Federation, I think, of the Blind, but AFB. So I was just wondering, have those organizations gotten behind you?
Yeah, so we had worked with them some years ago, and especially Royal
RNIB.
Blind. They have our products on their shop.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So the last question, what can we do to help you?
Just if you can help, just spreading the word. They don't have to buy our products. If you can just hear our stories and what's going on in the world, that could be very helpful. Just the lack of awareness of inclusive design is something that we really need to fix.
I agree.
Again, there are really a lot of amazing designers and engineers out there who pay really good attention to this matter if they know what's going on. It's just that they're not aware of the reality.
That's why we need to tell stories like yours. I know I programmed for years. I didn't like it, but I did it. And When I was programming, I was creating inaccessible websites because I didn't know about accessibility. And I approached a gentleman that was blind, and I told him about what I was doing with my new company at the time, Tech Access. And he said, Deborah, he said, I can't even get anything on your website. I was like, what? So I didn't know. So then I knew. So it was like, yes. So the word, that was 20 years ago, but still, there's still a lot of people that don't know that they're accidentally designing a bunch of people out of using their products. So that's another reason why I appreciate your story. Thank you so much. We want to continue to follow your progress. I actually want to own one of your watches, so I need to go out and look, only because it's a really cool design. And I love the story. And I love that you're supporting the community. So thank you so much for whatever you're doing. Reminder to the audience, it's e1-time.com, and we'll make sure we put it in the descriptions. But thank you so much for being a guest today. And
Thank
we
you
will
very
say
much for
bye to
having
the
me.
audience, and you stay on for a second. So bye, everyone.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.